how do you decide your PSU? In this video, we're going to talk about that, how to decide your PSU, how to do your calculations. And in case you don't want to do that, there is a link to a calculator as well that I'll share in the video, also in the description. So you can go ahead and calculate that. And this calculator that I'm sharing, it doesn't push you products. So I would say this is the most reliable calculator out there that I've tested with any other brand. It tells you exactly what you need. So it's quite reliable and very close to what you need. Almost in all PSUs, you must have seen that there's an 80 plus rating. Now this 80 plus rating, while it tells you a little bit of information about how efficient the PSU is, it doesn't really give you a full picture. Now, a lot of PSUs also have started having a Cybenetics rating. This Cybenetics rating does a better job than just an 80 plus rating. 80 plus rating system only tests across 3 points. Cybenetics, on the other hand, tests across, I think, 1,000 points. So this certification, if it is there on your PSU, hold it in a higher regard than just an 80 plus rating, because an 80 plus rating is not going to tell you about the quality of components. It will just tell you the efficiency. It's not going to tell you what kind of capacitors are used or how silent it is under load. And basically, it's not going to tell you how reliable the PSU is. A cheap PSU might even have an 80 gold rating. But then when you look at the components inside it, they'll have all cheap components. And that doesn't bode well with a system that you hold extremely dear to yourself. Now, in 2026, you shouldn't buy a PSU which is not ATX 3.1 compliant. Now, in the ATX 3.1 compliance, it handles the micro spikes, especially with these new graphic cards out there. There can be a very sudden jump in power consumption just for maybe a microsecond. The earlier power supply units couldn't handle it, but the ATX 3.1 compliant can handle it. Also, they have a dedicated 12 volt 2x6 connector type pin instead of the older 12 VH WPR cable. And this just means that it can handle more power with less of the connectors that you put in and a more reliable voltage to your GPU. Also, in the older gen cable, a few of the GPUs have caught fire, which in this ATX 3.1 compliant 12 volt cables, that's just not possible, because they've made sure that these new standards prevent that. So again, ATX 3.1, you have to go for nothing less than that. Also, don't just trust the brand name manufacturers within their own PSU ranges. They change parts with every price point. So here's what you do. You check the SPL PSU tier list. For higher end builds, I would say you stick exclusively to tier A. And then as you go lower, you probably go down to the last tier C, but nothing more than that. The tier A units are required to have advanced topologies like LLC resonant conversion and Japanese capacitors rated for 105 Celsius to ensure long-term reliability. Now let's talk about capacity. How do you calculate how much wattage of PSU you need? What you need to do is add your CPU and your GPU power requirement. And then on top of that, add about 150 watts. That'll be your total system power draw. And beyond that, you add a 20% buffer for future expansion or PSU degradation, because a PSU efficiency does degrade over time. And the wattage that it supplies, the maximum wattage that will degrade as well. So you need that headroom. Now, this is how you do your manual calculation. In case you don't want to do this, you want a piece of software, like I mentioned in the beginning of my video, this is a link that you can go to. You can use this calculator, and I honestly suggest that you go for the Seasonic calculator, as they don't push their products so hard as with the other brands. And I find them honest, as well as display details like TDP of each and every product that I've selected. So you get to know exactly how much your system is consuming while looking at the official TDPs of each of the components. Whether you go to every manufacturer's specifications and calculate the TDP from there, or you use the software, it's the same thing. But make sure that you have headroom. And also a tip over here, a PSU, whatever the rating of the PSU is, that is at 50% load. At 50% load, a PSU is most efficient. If you put it very close to its actual rating, then the PSU has degraded efficiencies. And that's roughly around 5 to 7%. So never, never put your system required wattage to even I would say 20%, below 20% of what your PSU can give. So maintain that headroom always. I would suggest that you do maybe 30 to 40%. I go a little overboard personally. I like to keep it at 50%. So my total wattage of my system is roughly at 400, but I'm running a PSU that's 850 watts. That's my personal choice, so that I have more headroom for any of the future expansions. Also, with the higher wattage and the better tiered PSUs, you get like 10 years of